Welcome back to the Village Hall podcast with me, Mr. Matt Ogden, and this man, Mr. Richard Sykes. How are we today, Mr. Richard?
I'm very well. You've recovered from your Italian excursions?
I've only just got back. But yeah, we were just saying off camera, I've eaten so much pasta, I've ballooned.
Yes, well, I haven't, and I'm just this shape anyway. It's fine.
So today,
yes,
we're going to be talking about the staging of the production, right?
Yeah.
And how you and Maria basically have planned the staging elements to give Woodhouse Musical Theatre Company and the Lawrence Batley Theatre a head start in the world premiere performance of the Village Hall.
Yeah, so what we're going to do is throw over to an interview that you did last week.
I did,
with
James
Clare, our
yes.
fantastic... He doesn't like to be called a producer.
Yeah.
He's called head of production.
Oh yes, head of production, technical, and all things backstage at the LBT.
Yeah.
Should we have a little journey over there?
Yeah, let's have a go.
So this is an interesting one for us. So I'm looking after the production. I suppose I'm production manager for this show. And it's quite an exciting one because we're challenging the space in a completely different way. Especially in a time, I'm full time at the Lawrence Batley Theatre. I'm head of technical there, and it's in my time. It's definitely a completely different way of how we're going to sort of stage the auditorium. So we've had to come up with different ways. Even things like putting it on box office, putting it on sale. That doesn't exist. We don't have that system to sort of do this layout. So
yeah, of course.
The layout will be, I suppose, traditionally in the round theatre. So that means you can come see the show, you can book a ticket, you could book multiple tickets, and every night you could sit in a different seat in a different space and you would see a different show. That's the aim, that's what we're going for. So it will feel really immersive, it should feel like you're a wall of the Village Hall, really. You are in that space with them. It should feel like the old village halls that we all know. I'd say love, but like your local,
we do love
your local village that you will have grown up and seen and gone to, and that you'll have seen all the different events that you've gone to. So, and that's what we're trying to capture in that space. So you could see that in that big room.
And what we're doing right now as well, and we'll put some photos and some videos up on the screen, I'm sure, is we're actually rehearsing it with the cast sat where the audience would be, as if they're those walls of the Village Hall that you mentioned, aren't they, James?
Yeah, and that's the challenge, I suppose, is rehearsing it in that way. It shouldn't... I suppose cast members are traditionally in a proscenium arch show are just facing one way. If you look upstage, you don't really matter what your face is saying. Whereas you are on view at every point that you are in this show.
Yeah, there's no hiding
spaces. You need to play it to all the four sides. Group numbers. So sight lines will be different, and I don't think there'll be a bad seat in the house. I think people will see different elements of the show.
That's going to be the exciting thing, isn't it? It means you can charge more money for the tickets as well, doesn't
it? I think just people have to come multiple times, and I think you could. I think you could come on different nights and you could sit polar ends of the auditorium, and you would see a different angle, and you'd see little snippets, and I think that's what the cast will play with, is finding those little moments that are unique to someone that's just sat there.
And like you said, as performers as well, they've got the opportunity to never switch off, to always be thinking about how they're portraying that specific character at that moment. And we'll go into a lot more detail about it, but obviously with the ensemble cast being so important, because they're the ones who are doing the activities, the two activities at a time in the round, they're always going to be seen. And as you say, if someone came on the first night and then they came on the last night and they focused on a different part of the stage, or they were looking at different characters of the ensemble, and also different aspects of the scenery, I imagine, because that's going to be another challenge. How are you going to be able to get things on and off, or what's that going to look like?
Yeah, and I think for this, I mean, people see, if you came to see by George, there's quite a lot of scenery, a lot of props, and it was that sort of 2D look, I suppose. It will be on that sort of style, it will be the scale of that, because actually the room becomes the Village Hall. So a lot of it will be bringing props and furniture and all the things that are needed in the show. A big challenge for us is, how do you light it? You're not just lighting that way, you've got light from every angle. Things like follow spots, where do those sort of position? How do we bring things out? Because we don't have the flying system that we got completely on stage, because
of course
the audience will be there. So that'll be unique for us, and a challenge.
You get the audience to hold a spotlight up for you.
Yeah, just hold this.
Just stay still.
Point that at that person when they say that. And that's what our summer will be. That'll be how we look at working with Neil, the director, and what sort of is bringing his vision to life, and making sure those little moments that are the quiet moments or the loud ones and the big groups, so you should be able to see everyone, but you might want to bring it right down for some nice poignant moments, but being able to light it from a point that every single person in that auditorium can see them and hear them. You've got umpteen cast that'll all be wearing mics, and where do we place speakers, and it's all those challenges that sort of I look after, but no one should really see. You should
Yeah,
come and
exactly.
think, oh well,
Especially in
the
a round
speakers
where
were
it's so
great,
exposed, you have to find ways to hide the kind of transitions, hide the scene changes, and I suppose the cast will play a big part in bringing props and scenery changes and things like that on, so that it kind of masks your work for you, right?
Yeah, I don't think this is a show where you would have some people in black come on and plonk down a piece of scenery because the travel distance for them to bring it's far. And where do they come from? Do they come from the auditorium? Because people will, in this, be entering from where the audience is coming into the room, or the normal way that we're coming from. So there's like 5-6 exits and entrances that then mean man in, and where do props live, and if it's gone off that way, how does it get back to there? So that's sort of where I sit in this role of making sure just bringing all those people together who do all those vital roles and making sure it smooths out and is the show that people come to see.
And well, thank you, James.
Oh,
I'm sure
no
we'll
worries.
catch up again very soon.
So that was James Clare with a little bit of insight into how they're going to approach it from a theatre perspective. But then from your perspective, Richard, how does it work when you're writing it, knowing this is going to be in the round and that theatre's going to have to adapt to be able to put that performance on?
Well, the story is that I didn't know it was going to be in the round.
Oh, of course.
I just wrote the script, and then Maria was the guiding light who said, "Hang on, there's a way of doing this." And the point is, she'd done a production at the Lawrence Batley Theatre 30 years ago. We won't mention that, but nonetheless, it was one of the first things that went on at the Lawrence Batley Theatre, and she was in a production of Alice. She mentioned it on the other podcast, where she did a production of like the Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And so her interpretation of the Village Hall when she read the script was, no, this has to be in the round. This is a confrontational thing, and it's set in a village hall. You need the
You need to
four
feel
walls.
boxed in, don't you?
You do.
Yeah, yeah.
That's kind of the point of the show. And so, of course, I agreed. And the moment it turned into an in-the-round production, certain decisions had to be made about the script, but also about what we're going to do with the staging. Originally, when we said we're going to do it in the round, my vision was to have exits at the four corners.
Yeah, what would be the corners
The
of
corners
the
of the village hall. Yeah, but those would turn into our doors effectively. With it being a farce musical, you need lots of entrances and exits because that's what makes it funny. So we decided to compromise a little when we talked to the Lawrence Batley Theatre, because you used to be able to get the entire floor to one level at the Lawrence Batley Theatre. It used to be able to run...
That's the floor of the stalls.
The floor of the stall used to raise to the height of the stage.
Yeah.
Then they had some cosmetic work done during the pandemic.
They did?
And they changed the way it worked. Unfortunately, you can no longer have a completely flat floor there now.
Oh, okay.
Only by about that much.
Oh, right.
But it still doesn't make it a flat floor. So what you have to do then is compromise a little, put a few of the seats down, and you can have what they laughingly term with mega thrust with sides. This sounds like a very James thing, but it's true.
Mega thrust.
Yeah, and if you've
Sounds
never
like a
had
transformer, doesn't it?
if you've never had a mega thrust at
Oh,
the
here
LBT,
we
you
go.
haven't lived. So that's what happened. We got a compromise floor to the stage, which meant that we had to take away the exits to the corners.
Okay.
And we had to put 2 exits to a corner, and then we had 2 which were through the audience.
Okay. The first episode we discussed how the opening of the musical is the people trying to get into the village hall.
Yep.
They're banging, clattering because they're trying to knock through the walls to actually access the village
Hall
itself. So where is that positioned from the audience's perspective now then?
From the audience perspective, that is amongst the seating. So you get this incredible impact.
So in amongst the
in amongst the seating, you get the double doors.
Yeah.
In amongst what's going to be the grandstand seating, which is on the stage. For me, some of the best seats in the house are there. So yes, the doors are there, and people come charging through the audience, wet,
literally
wet, absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's going to be good, isn't it?
It should be fun.
How are we going to get them wet? Last time we had to take fish and chips around the theatre.
No.
I mean, I'll happily use a water pistol.
This is exactly what. No, it's a paddling pool and a hose. So we're going to douse everyone before they go on.
And I assume we're going to make sure they're pre-wet before they get the microphones on.
No.
Oh?
No, you just cover the microphone.
Condom
if you want. Yes,
course,
but generally it's just a cover.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that works.
Wow.
There are, of course, compromises that we're going to be making.
Do the cast all know this?
Oh, yes. They've all been informed.
All right, so they've signed their release forms.
I wish we had release forms for this one. There's an awful lot they need to do here.
Day release forms.
It'll be wet and wild. It'll be great fun. It'll be stunning.
A classic Richard Sykes musical. Wet and Wild. That's the next one.
Mentioning no cruise ships. Yeah.
No.
Oh yes.
Spoiled.
Secret project.
So we've got our rough plan of how it's going to work, and obviously, like you said, a pivotal cog in organising that was Maria, who also was the inspiration for the staging for By George, having the chip shop and the pub on the two sides and being set on the stage. How are the cast going to be able to bring on and off all of those different props to show the different kind of societies or different classes of the village hall? Is that going to be a case of Sue and the wardrobe team are combined with the props team, and when they're getting dressed they'll go from being a Zumba class person to a badminton player or something like that? How's that going to work for you?
Well, the interesting thing about that is that there won't be any stage crew coming to bring on props, because this all works in real time.
In the village
hall. The people who bring on the props will be the people who would do it in the village hall. So they'll come in, they'll go straight to the store cupboard, they'll go and get the chairs and the tables that they need for the activity out, and they'll stick them in the village hall.
And it'll feel better
Yes.
with it being kind of awkward and clunky, because
Absolutely.
if you've watched musical theatre or any play really, especially when you go to a village hall, you'll see these clunky, awkward transitions where the lighting changes not quite right.
By necessity.
Or you'll see the stagehand put the chair on.
Yeah.
With this, that's actually what you want to happen, isn't it?
Absolutely. In fact, in the second act, as I mentioned last week, we've got a pantomime. The Chile players are doing the panto. So when they bring on props and things, it's actually staged as being, this has to be clunky.
As awkward as possible.
Yeah, they have to transition a pumpkin to a carriage. Well, how do you do it in a village hall? You can do it on a West End stage. You can do it with lights and effects. You haven't got that in a village hall.
No.
So you have to use your imagination. And that's kind of the point.
And with writing that, like you say, it's kind of, it wasn't until Maria started editing the first few drafts that really formulated in your minds. How have you had to approach that with this? Because I don't know if you've ever written anything in the round before. Have you had to kind of think about, well, that character now can't be in the next scene because they need to go off that entrance or exit and they need to get changed into another outfit? How does that work from a writing perspective?
From my writing perspective, it makes no difference whatsoever, because
you just leave it to the director
just write
to
it.
decide.
Absolutely. But Maria has been very stringent in making sure that all the exits are in the script. Every time someone enters and exits, we know which exit they're going off and which entrance they're coming on, even to the point of saying which direction they need to head.
Because it helps for the director and the actors to be able to then...
But also, it's relevant to the plot. You need to know that some people have gone to the kitchen, therefore leaving the storeroom free, so that there can be some canoodling there.
It sounds like a Cluedo game, doesn't it?
Very much so.
The
There's a secret passage going here. Yeah, that's
yeah.
right. Yeah, I do make fun of the fact that a lot of the characters are off the stage. It works just like a traditional farce. And when you get to something in the final act where we've got the costume basket, I am not going to spoil what happens in there. I've got to be very careful. But what I will say is that is another entrance and exit. People go into the basket, they come out of the basket. And so it works as a farce. An audience knows there is something in the box.
Something's awry.
Yeah, and no one else knows it's there. And suddenly the audience is in on the gag, and you can play off that enormously. It's great for a writer to have someone who's going to appear and you don't know when it's going to happen, because it also gives you tension, because they could pop up at any moment.
So you've gone from By George, if you remember, cast your minds back, and if you didn't see it, go back and watch season 1 By George from Page to Stage.
Just watch the whole thing on YouTube, it's fine.
Yeah, or listen to it on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts from. But you had Naomi as Marge in a bin, but that was only for effectively one scene, really, wasn't it? So it sounds like for this character is going into this basket and then staying in there for quite some time.
Who knows if they'll emerge? You never know.
We need a trap door on the stage, but it sounds things like
well, to be fair, we did when we approached the Lawrence Batley about staging. It became apparent that there wasn't the work to do that there was on By George, where they had to create these incredible sets. With this, there isn't a set, so they were looking around for things to do. And one thing that I said they should do is make us a costume basket. We couldn't find one, or we didn't want to find one that was available to use, because we might be trashing this thing.
Oh god!
So we need it to be substantial. We actually need it to be on wheels,
right?
And it needs to be the piece of scenery that's made. So fortunately, James is going to do that for us. Bless him.
So if they're not having to worry about building a bar or building
a chip shop,
now, so is it more about the set dressing and making it so that when people walk into the auditorium, it gets that sense of
I'm in a village hall.
Smell, look, feel of a village hall.
Absolutely.
There's bring some dust and just throw it everywhere.
Strangely, there is a must setting. So what we will do is be putting a bit of smoke into the room. Light and music are very important to the show.
Yeah.
And so it'll start with a lighting state, which is like a village hall in the dark, with these beautiful beams coming through.
Great orange light.
Absolutely.
Yeah. One blinking because it's not quite working properly.
Yeah.
It's like old bulbs.
Yeah, the neon bulbs are going to be dropped pretty much on top of the stage. So when it comes to the show, they are then lifted. Yeah. James has got some big plans, but he's created these. These weren't specified in the script. It's just something that James says, oh no, we can really build the atmosphere here and make it right. Perfect. As someone who doesn't do staging, it's a joy to see some people just going with it. It's great.
The fact that he's going to be able to have so much fun hopefully going around village halls and just looking at them and thinking, okay, I really like that aspect, and I love that that's not working properly, and the toilet out of order sign, and this, and all these little elements that can just be taken from all sorts of different village halls in all sorts of different areas, whether they're affluent or not, and go, okay, I can take inspiration from that, and I can turn this sort of living, breathing hall in situ into the Chile Village Hall.
That's the key. It's got to feel like a character in itself.
Yeah, of course.
The Village Hall has to exist. That's why the company are so important to this. It's got to feel real. Otherwise, there's no real point to it.
And super lived in as well.
Oh, very much so. Yeah. For this, we're doing our own research, of course, because over the next few weeks, actually the next 6 weeks, we're going to be filming in other village halls around Huddersfield.
I can't wait,
It'll be fun. Our first one is next week. That's going to be at Netherton. So I'm really looking forward to that. But hey.
It's going to be so much fun. Yeah. I think if you are part of a village hall and you're watching this podcast and you would like us to come and film at your village hall, or even, just come and have a little look and see what it's all about, do a bit of a shout out of things that are going on in your village hall, things that we can publicise. Obviously, we'd love for you to come and see the village hall, the world premiere, and love for you to get involved with the production. It's worth getting in touch with us. And how can they do that, Richard?
Well, you'd be amazed to hear that we've got a QR code that's coming up here right now. The QR code will take you to book tickets, but you can also go and see my website at www.richsykes.com. That'll give you details there. You can check out all our previous podcasts as well, and you can do that by liking and subscribing to the podcast itself.
You can watch all of the podcasts of the Village Hall.
Mm-hmm.
You can also go back and watch all of the By George from Page to Stage podcasts as well on Rich's YouTube channel. And like we said earlier, you can listen along. So if you don't have the time to watch it right now, or if you just like listening to a podcast as you're on your way to work or school or wherever you're going, you can get them wherever you get your podcasts, can't you?
You can fit Matt and I in any pockets. We're fine. No problem at all. So that's it from us, folks. Thank you, Matt. Bless
Thank you very much, Mr. Richard. Right, I'll see you again on the Village Hall from Page to Stage. Bye-bye.
Bye.